Mr. Chair, we're getting our consultants on the Zoom as we speak, so we can hold off for a moment if we could, please.
Sure. How are we doing with the board members?
You have quorum. You have.
Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Janet and Steve and everyone.
Good morning, Supervisor Horseman.
I think we've got most of them here.
There's Geronimo. I see Patrice and I see Geronimo. All right.
Remember Romper Room? Did you ever see Romper Room? We're about the same age, but they did that, you know? I see.
I think something in my memory is triggering, but I can't pull it up.
Steve?
Yes, ma'am.
Looks like Gary's not being able to, he said the link isn't working. Could somebody resend it to him, please, as well?
Okay. Let's see. Let me ask Lindsay, can you resend that link?
To Gary Husk, thank you.
To Gary?
Yes, I'll send it right now. Thanks.
And I see Judy out there. Hey, Judy.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. And then, where is that vice chair, Lena Fowler? I thought I saw her thing up there.
Yeah, she's on.
It's been a busy 48 hours.
48 hours. So did you enjoy your break during July?
Too funny, Mr. Chair, too funny.
I'm looking forward to October myself.
Yeah, emergencies is us, you know?
We sure did take a vacation, didn't we?
Mm.
Ha ha ha.
Still, let's see. Mr. Chair, while we're waiting on Gary and Jose, the session, while originally anticipated to include exec session, will not include exec session today. Our presentation will be in public session. We have, of course, slides that I'm going to be showing you all. Our consultants, Janet, Jose, and Gary, will be providing additional commentary related to some of the hearings that they've attended, because the Independent Redistricting Commission did kick off their public hearing this past week. And so we'll be talking about that. And as soon as we get everyone on the line, I will defer to you, Mr. Chair, to call the meeting to order and we can proceed.
Okay. Just let me know when you have it going there, Steve. That reminded me. You sent the updated PowerPoint. Okay.
And I know, Mr. Chair, we may at 9 o'clock, there is another Zoom happening on the update with the flooding that's happening on Navajo and Hopi. And I know Supervisor Begay is going to be excusing herself. Sue Brown is going to be excusing herself to attend that Zoom update, and possibly our vice chair. But again, we'll see if we can cover this again. A lot of competing activities happening this morning.
Sure. Well, we'll see how it goes. Maybe we can wrap up soon, but we'll see. We'll see how it works out there. Okay, there's
I see Jose is dialed in. Just waiting on Gary.
This is Lena. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
sure.
can.
Okay, great. All right.
And you see your nice green. It's almost like a Hawaiian shirt right there.
Maybe I'm in Hawaii, huh?
We need the Hawaiian screen background.
Is it like this? Yeah.
Let's see, Deputy County Attorney Rose Winkler's on.
All right.
One more.
I'm on. Can you see me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Jose. We're waiting on Gary next.
Gary, I think Gary's still at Pinal County listening to her.
That's right.
No, his meeting lasted 5 hours. Luckily, none of the ones that I went to lasted that long.
5 hours.
Yes.
Whoa.
They're getting better attendance than I thought they were going to get.
That's good.
Yes, it is.
Darn. My printer's dying.
Let's see. Let's see. Can we text Gary to see if he's having any issues?
I just did, Steve. He said he hasn't received the link.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lindsay,
I got
can
it.
Lindsay, you're calling. Can you send the link, please, to Gary Husk?
Yes, I've sent it to Gary.
Okay, thanks.
Is there a way he can simply call in?
Hang on a minute. Let me.
Okay.
We have that 800 number and the webinar ID.
I also sent him the phone number with the web ID in that email as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Lindsay.
He hasn't gotten it yet.
So,
Hey, why don't we?
yeah,
We're going to go ahead and get kicked off, and as Gary joins in, we'll call him out, Mr. Chair. So you may call the meeting to order, sir.
okay. Okay, there we go. Meeting's being recorded. Okay, today's July 26, 2021. I'll go ahead and call our special session to order. And this is a discussion, update, and possible direction related to redistricting. And so with that, just a real quick check-in for the sake of the record. I'll go through the supervisors, District 1, Supervisor Horseman.
I am present. Good morning, everyone. Good to see everybody again.
All right, welcome back. Good to see you, Patrice. District 2, Geronimo Vasquez.
Present. Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone. I'm looking forward to a good meeting. Thank you.
All right, now keep that water off the mountain. Let it go at regular rates there, Geronimo. Yeah. And then District 4, Supervisor Judy Begay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here.
All right.
Looking forward to the meeting.
Good to see you, Judy. Welcome. And then last, we have our Vice Chair, District 5 Representative, Supervisor and Vice Chair Lena Feller.
Yeah, this is Lena. Thank you so much. I'm here.
All right, welcome. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Steve first. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our consultants, Jose, Janet, and Gary. We're appearing before you today to give you an update on the preparation for the Independent Redistricting Commission. Their listening tour is going to be in Flagstaff this week. We had originally anticipated that a portion of this discussion would be an executive session, but after consideration, the material that we're presenting today does not quite fit that slot or that category, if you will. And so I made the last minute decision to change this to an all public discussion. All the information, of course, that you see today will be also viewable for the public as a public record. And so with that disclaimer and disclosure, I'm going to share my slides. And if you can just let me know, let me get it up here. Okay, can you see my slide? Okay. So again, and I think Gary, I saw a 602 number just appear, and I think Gary's on as well. So Mr. Chair, members of the board, of course, every 10 years we go through a process called redistricting. And so today's topic is going to be focusing on legislative and congressional redistricting. And let me get to the next slide. So congressional districts, and then this is just an orientation to all of you. The topic that we're talking about today is congressional and legislative redistricting. Coconino County is also going to be embarking on a local redistricting effort in the next week or two. And that will be focusing in on the Board of Supervisors as well as, and while we don't have that particular decision to make, the community colleges as well. So Coconino County Supervisors of district boundaries as well as the community college district boundaries will take place in a second process that follows pretty much the same framework that you see following with the state independent redistricting commission process. So as you'll see with this first slide, excuse me, these are the congressional districts as we know them today. And you will note where Coconino County lies within Congressional District 1. And information on the left of the screen here, you'll see the population looking at all of the congressional districts in Arizona in terms of the estimated, and you can see some of the percentage changes. Now, this is all estimated. The Census Bureau will be releasing actual population figures in the coming weeks, and so that will be the basis for redistricting efforts going forward. So again, you can see with congressional district where Coconino County lies within the larger area as well as in the state. Let me go to the next slide and then kind of orient you to, of course, legislative. Oh, this is it. This is legislative. So legislative, same thing. You will see where Coconino County lies legislatively. Of course, in legislative districts 6 and 7. And you'll see, of course, the boundary of the legislative district. And we have several, we have 2 that we share within that legislative boundary as well. So again, just giving you an orientation in terms of where the current legislative and congressional districts lie. From there, and I just went through this, so the congressional districts, and this is in the PowerPoint I sent you earlier today. And so you'll just be able to see in terms of just what I just covered. The congressional district fully encompasses in Coconino County. There are 2 legislative districts, legislative district 6 and 7, and you can see the precincts as well as the estimated population. Again, more for background information. I'm going to, at this point in time, turn it over to Jose Rivera, and he's going to walk us through the independent redistricting process calendar. And so, Jose, can you take this slide, please?
Yeah, sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to speak in English. But thank you for allowing us to come in and speak to you. This is what Steve has put up on there is the calendar of what they anticipate they're going to have to be doing. And it involves a number of things. But the things that I want to focus are the 3 underlines that Steve's already got on. Right now, we're in the listening tour, the 7/22/21. It started on the 22nd in Pinal County. Since then, we've had listening tours in Pinal and 2 in Phoenix. And I'll come back to those in a little while. And that's going to go on until on the 8th of August, and they're throughout the state of Arizona. The one that's most important for Coconino is they're coming to Flagstaff on Thursday to speak. The meeting will be in High Country. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, High Country Conference Center.
Yeah, High Country. It starts at 5 p.m. And they'll go on as long as there's people there. People are speaking. They've been going at various points. When they first started this, they thought they were going to have 5 to 30 people speaking. They've exceeded expectations. Gary, who did the Pinal County listening tour, lasted 5 hours. The ones in Phoenix, each one lasted right around 2 to a little more than 2. And the people that have been coming out are right around 30. And they're limiting people to 3 minutes of speaking time. And they've been pretty good about that. They've got a timekeeper that goes in there. We can talk about the listening tours in terms of what we developed. We can do that right now if the board wishes, or we can wait till we go through this whole calendar. I leave it up to you guys. What do you guys want to do?
If you could, Mr. Chair, we can go ahead and let's wait till we go to the calendar.
Okay.
We can capture it then.
Okay. So then, if you look, the next important date is the 16th of August. As everybody knows, this thing's been flawed by the lack of census information. They've been promising it to us for a while, and there's been lawsuits because it's been so late. The last word we heard is that they definitely will come in on the 16th. They'll release all the census data on August 16th. And then it'll be loaded onto the redistricting system to the 3rd. Then there's a variety of reports that come through there, like the community of interest report will be interesting because they'll give that report based on what people have put in either through the listening tours or through the computer. Then they vote the Arizona State data on the 3rd of September. Then it goes on, and the next thing that you should look at would be the grid map, which they've got scheduled for the 15th of September. And what that is the first step in the redistricting process in Arizona is they have to draw a grid map. They have to draw a grid map that doesn't take into account any of the criteria that's either state or federal, except for population and contiguity. And so what they do is that they pick a point somewhere in the state, and they decide which way to go. And depending on which way to go, they'll start drawing up grids that may or may not be the final maps, but they'll start drawing up grids that are equal in population and next to each other. So you won't draw a grid. A grid map will not include something in northern Arizona and southern Arizona. It'll include part by part. There have been suggestions of how to start the grid map. It's really important where you start the grid map. In 2000, they started the grid map in northeast Arizona, and they rotated it south, and it went all the way around. You can see the final map really does not have anything to do with the grid map. In 2010, they started in Prescott, and Prescott was interesting because they started doing Prescott, and they had it on a grid, and then by the time they finally finished the final map, the Yavapai was not even in the grid that they first drew it in. They jumped it to a whole different congressional and state district. So that's the first step. I mean, once they decide where they're going to do it, once they start going around the state, once they decide which state to go around, it's all computer generated, and it'll be equalized to population and et cetera. Theoretically, we'll not have any semblance to the districts that we have right now. There'll be some overlap because they're so large, but they will not. There's been some talk on these listening tours about where they should start. The consensus right now from the people speaking, not from the commissioners, is they should start in heavily populated areas such as Maricopa County, because that's where they'll pick up the most population. The 3 heaviest growth areas, if they're going to do that, are Maricopa County, Pinal, and Pima. Like Pima is the new addition to it from the last couple of times. It's increased population at a higher rate than anybody else. So they'll do that, and then when they publish the grid map, they'll go ahead and send it out for public comment. There's a 23-day review by them and by the public. I don't know if they're going to have a tour of the state on that, or whether they're just going to hold all the meetings in Phoenix or by Zoom. I think they'll tell us more about that. And after that, the public review, the 30-day public review starts on October 28th, and it goes to 11/30. So you can tell it's very compressed. Again, on 12/7 they have comment and comment time and reading. I'm not sure if they're going to take that out around the district again throughout the whole state to see what they're going to do. But they anticipate that they'll do that, and then their plan, and I don't think there's any way feasible if this is ever going to happen, is their plan is to finish it to do adopted plans by the 22nd of December. They're going to be a whole bunch of meetings at some point in time. They're going to be meeting daily somewhere before this. I don't think anybody, even the commission, anticipates that 12/21 meeting is going to hold. The last 2 commissions, when they submitted their plans, the 2000 commission submitted their plans in January, and the 2010 commission did not submit their plans until February. And they had a lot more time to develop these these communities of interest to draw maps and everything else. So with their condensed schedule that they have, I just don't, I mean, I'm not a betting man, but if I was a betting man, I would bet that December meeting is not going to hold. There's also, I'm sure there'll be a lot of comments also about the other meetings that they've had. Some of the comments that we've been hearing is that, and that we've kind of been observing, is that the IRC Commission has not done a very good job of publicizing what they're doing and how they're doing it. They don't have a community liaison yet, or a group that's supposed to be going out to the community and getting people to come in and approach. It's been happening a lot like we have here in Coconino from the county or from local levels. Some legislators are getting people to come in and speak, but the lack of attendance has been really striking, and the lack of statements have been really striking. So that's the calendar. And we can come back and talk about listening tours whenever you guys want to talk.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jose. I'll proceed, Mr. Chair. The next, of course, are the members of the Independent Redistricting Commission. Remarkable on this list is there's one individual that represents rural areas, and luckily that individual resides from Coconino County, the area. So you can see Mr. Watchman, certainly not to take away from other commissioner members, but I think it really strikes notable that we have one individual that is rural. Of course, rural being a very important tenet of the county's position related to redistricting. So any comments or questions at this time, Mr. Chair? Or I'll go to Jose first if I could.
Yeah, so if you look at this, the makeup, I mean, they're mostly residing in heavily populated areas. In terms of approaching, and Gary, you might, did all of them show up at the Pinal County meeting, Gary? Maybe we don't have them on there. In the Tucson meeting, the first meeting that they had in Glendale, it was pretty well attended by all the commissioners. Mr. York, I think, came in by satellite. In the second meeting, which was downtown Phoenix at the Civic Center, the only commissioner that showed up live was the chair. She was the only one that showed up. Everybody else, with the exception of one person, came in through satellite. So, and I don't know how many people are going to show up to Flagstaff. I anticipate that there'll be at least, I think the chair's meeting is committed to showing up to almost all of them, if not all of them. The rest of the people are not going to have the attendance that they have. We'll know a little more because they have a meeting in Yavapai before the Flagstaff meeting that Janet's going to attend, and we'll see how many people show up there. Flagstaff might, I have no idea, but I think Watchman may show up. But hopefully all of them will show up. They've been really quiet. They've been really quiet in terms of what they plan. They've all been very vocal in terms of what should be done and what shouldn't be done. And they've got a whole bunch of experts that they've already lined up. But their lack of community outreach is really, really, really missing right now. And you can tell that they're missing it because of the people that have been showing up. And again, I don't know how it happened in Pinal County, but the people that went to Glendale were mostly elderly and retired people. They're keeping up with it. In Maricopa County, you did have a broader reach of people, and there were actually at the Glendale meeting there were no Native, and neither one of them were there any Native American speakers that talked about issues with Native American things. In the downtown meeting, you did have some Hispanic, but they still were, the majority of the people were mostly retired, and a lot of them from Scottsdale, Tempe area. I'm sorry, and we'll come back. Go ahead. Okay. I'm sorry.
That's fine. And we get to the tour list itself, and as you indicated, Mr. Rivera, to the board, the listening sessions began on the 23rd. As we've indicated, Pinal, Maricopa, Tuesday, tomorrow, Yavapai County, Wednesday, Mojave, Thursday, Coconino, and I'll come back to why these are highlighted in a moment. Friday, Apache County, Saturday, Navajo County, Sunday, Gila, Thursday the 5th is Santa Cruz, and then going all around the state.
Hey, Dean, I'm on the meeting with the city council.
So, Jose, you're not muted.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And then, so again, going through Graham, Greenlee, Pima, and back to Maricopa. We highlighted these particular ones because it's going to be, I believe, important for us to have broad awareness of the listening sessions that are taking place in counties adjacent to Coconino. And so we'll be coming back to this topic, but looking at having a board member attend these meetings will be important. So Yavapai, of course, board members will be here for Coconino, and then Friday, Apache and Navajo County. And so we'll come back towards the end of the presentation, Mr. Chair, to identify board members who might be available to attend these particular listening sessions, of course, in addition to ours.
Can I ask
Let's
a
see.
question?
Yes,
If I may, Steve, just real quick. I have a number of questions to ask. Do you want us to wait till the very end to do that after we go through this? Is that going to be the best way?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Supervisor, Mr. Chair, if I could address to you first, this would probably be a good point to stop and take questions from the board before we proceed to the next portion, just to see where we're at, with your permission.
Yeah, actually, it works well in terms of the dividing point. So, yeah, okay, go ahead, Patrice.
Yeah, thanks. And, and Steve, I want to thank you for putting this outline together. This is very informative and had an opportunity to look at it real briefly this morning. And I think this is a great overview. So thank you. I know some of us are, want to make sure that the county, in fact, has a presence. It's really important for this listening tour schedule. And so I really appreciate all your efforts and work on this. In the midst of a flood, floods all over the county. So thank you very much for that. In terms of, and I'm also very happy to hear in terms of the having members of the board to attend some of these other listening tour schedules. I know we'll talk about that at the end. I'm certainly happy and willing to attend some of these other listening tour schedules. I do have some questions with regards to the one here in Flagstaff. And is there first of all, I'm assuming that we at the Board of Supervisors will make a decision on having representatives from the board to present on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. And hopefully, are we going to be doing that today, Mr. Chair and Mr. County Manager?
Mr. Chair, if I can comment on that. So when we get to the slide regarding the broad county priorities for redistricting, the suggestion is to have the chair present the broad county priorities. However, the county being as large as it is, the suggestion will be then to ask each board member to speak to those broad county priorities as they relate to your specific district.
So you're looking for everybody to speak then?
Yes, and so we're going to see, quite honestly, if we can get away with it with chair of IRC. And that's why, and I think it's really important that as each of you are making comment to it, you're making comment to it as those broad priorities that are impactful to your specific district. A repetitiveness of those comments may be called by the IRC chair as saying, we've already heard that, and so we want to make sure that our comments are as unique as possible. Now, I'm going to stop because, Mr. Chair, with Jose and Gary and probably Janet that have been at some of the public hearings, I want to see what is the flexibility or the accommodation of the chair with regard to some of the hearings that have taken place. Is it?
Sure. Is Gary on yet?
So Lindsay, could you tell Gary how to speak through the phone? What is it, star section or something like that?
Chair Ryan, I show that he is on virtually. Analysts, or here we go. Hold on, one more second.
Okay. So until Gary comes on, I can tell you here's how the meetings start. They have a sign-in sheet when you come in, They will ask you to sign in your name, and then they'll have you do this survey that I think is going to come up later in this thing.
I can pull it.
Yeah, if you go pull up the survey, that's kind of important, real quick. So finally, after a whole bunch of requests, last week, the IRC published and printed this IRC Community of Interest comment form, and they really like people to fill this out, especially people that are going to speak. It has a number of items on there, like names. They're really looking at social security numbers and whether you represent somebody or another. Every speaker that's spoken either has filled it out prior to the meeting or at the meeting. The one thing that really draws their interest is where's the map? Yeah, see the figure that they have on the left-hand side, the community boundary map. They allow you to they want you to, in fact, they allow you, but you don't have to, but they always are like to have a community of interest map, and you can go onto the website, their website, and draw your community of interest on there so they can see they like it because they can see it. They can see how it overlays with the community of interest. It's going to be difficult to draw a huge community of interest for such large districts as congressional districts. But for small community interest that people have been speaking about, like school boards, school districts, neighborhoods, specific neighborhoods, you can actually draw on the map and present it to them. Right now, what the main focus from what I see has not been congressional. The main focus has been legislative. There's been almost to a person, everybody has spoken on legislative districts and what happens, and have a lot of dissatisfaction about how the districts are drawn right now. I can go through all of them for you, but let me tell you what I thought was the biggest one from my perspective that affected Coconino County. And that's if you look at Anthem, Scottsdale, part of Scottsdale, Northern Phoenix, Paradise Valley, their districts stretch out all the way to Yavapai, and they hate that. There was more comments from both locations about how nobody wants to be with Yavapai. They want to be within interior Maricopa County. They have no community of interest with Yavapai. They have nothing in common with Yavapai. And that's, I think Yavapai is going to play a big part. And I'm curious to see what Janet and Chairman Ryan find out at the Yavapai meetings, to see what the Yavapai people are going to say, as to whether the community of interest stretches down to Phoenix.
Hey, Jose, this is Gary. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Let me jump in and tell you a little bit about the first meeting, which was in Pinal County, and thus far it went twice as long as anything in Maricopa County. I thought that, like Jose said, the major focus was the legislative districts. And Pinal County has several areas where communities, cities, towns are actually divided in half. The city of Casa Grande, for instance, has 2 legislative districts, and they feel like their influence has been diluted by that. The commission seemed very concerned about that and wanting to address that. There was also a lot of interest on the part that was raised by former Senator Pete Rios, who's been in probably the redistricting fight for 40 years. But he spoke to the commission and talked about what he called the Copper Corridor, which ran from Apache Junction, Miami Globe, Superior, then across to Hayden, Winkleman, Mammoth, and San Manuel. He argued that those communities, given their socioeconomic makeup, their interest in mining, and their Hispanic influence, should be joined as one district. And actually the commission seemed pretty receptive to that proposal. Those were, I think, on the positive side. On a bit of the negative side, there were some members of the community, both private citizens and leaders of the communities that spoke in terms of the retirement community north of Tucson called Saddlebrook, which is almost an extension of Pima County. And one of the really interesting proposals was, I believe it was the mayor of Maricopa said, well, I think you should draw a line that would allow the Saddlebrook people to be in the same district as the Santan people, which, I mean, that's a huge distance. You would have to have a very narrow district to pick that up, but they went so far as to do that. Now, the final thing that I would say that I noticed was when, especially when Pete Rios was talking in terms of the copper district, the commission wanted to see a map of that. They didn't have one at the time. Staff pulled up a general map and there was some discussion on it, but I think given their interest in mapping, their focus on that, and their lack of awareness of some of the areas, that if we do have specific proposals, that those be included in a map, or certainly referred to in a map.
If I may, Chair Ryan.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrice. And then I do want to capture some of the board members' last comments.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'm still, so how to sign up, we just sign in and we can just indicate at the time we get there a sign up. If in fact all the board members are going to speak, what may be appropriate is before we end today, if we could have board members kind of pick one or two of the various county priorities that we discussed with Janet and Jose last week or 2 weeks ago. Time has flown by so quick. Just so that we don't repeat ourselves and we can maximize our 3 minutes, since 3 minutes isn't a lot of time. So, but anyway, this is helpful. My second question would be if we do divide up and come up with various areas, topics on county priorities, are we going to want to speak to legislative districts? I know there will be a number of people from our community talking about legislative districts. I remember back at a time when our legislative districts here in Flagstaff were divided between two different legislative districts. I don't think that was such a good thing. I would hate to see that again, but is that our focus as a board member, or is our focus more to talk about communities of interest in a larger scheme? Is I guess my question.
Yeah, I'll hop on that one, and then Steve and our consultants can advise more. So we have that opportunity if we keep it more general in terms of, our priorities. They're going to be drawing the maps, but it doesn't hurt for us to say, this community of interest, it doesn't benefit it by being split to different legislative districts. There is a potential. We do have a couple of legislative districts in Coconino County that have benefited us, but it depends on where the line is drawn associated with it. So we there is a chance to provide some comment. I'll go back to Steve or the consultants if you want to go ahead and correct me or whatever, please do.
If I could, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to punt it over to our consultants. When we speak of districts, maps versus the communities of interest, and I think the question to me would be for Jose and the other team would be, based on your attendance at the meetings, what tends to be more engaging to the commission? To speak to communities of interest versus we think the map should look like this, this, and this.
If I may, it's not a legal decision in terms of how detailed you want to go into in terms of communities of interest. Right now, the communities of interest that are being discussed most are not broad, big communities of interest. They're not county communities of interest. There's only been one board of supervisor. That was Steve Gallardo. That came in from Maricopa County, and he didn't speak. He just wanted to listen. So I think that if you look at it from a county perspective, obviously your communities of interest are going to be larger and more than what's been spoken up until now. The map, they like the maps. It's not to say that you're going to draw the map like that. They just want to identify the geographical areas of communities of interest. And it's easier to do it on a smaller community of interest rather than a larger community of interest. The chairperson and the commission have been really good about listening to a lot of people. They haven't slammed anybody down for being repetitive. There's been a lot of repetition, but it's mostly cities and individual legislative districts that have been dominating the listening tours up until right now. I think when you go back to the slides that you talk about county priorities, I think that will fit right in terms of on a larger community of interest rather than a smaller community of interest. That's not to say that not necessarily the Board of Supervisors should speak about it, but people and leaders that are contained within your districts can come in and start talking a little more detailed about specific areas and specific communities of interest for legislative districts. And I'm hoping that we'll get a lot of those. For instance, in our conversations that I've had with some of that we've had with some of the individual supervisors, they've talked about communities of interest like school districts, where we want to keep these school districts together. There's people like, I think somebody mentioned, maybe Supervisor Vasquez, something like Sunnyside. That's a community of interest because they think. I think those kind of things, like you can go more into the microscopic kind of things, are better done not by the supervisors, but by people that live in those communities. That's not to say that it's your decision to make, but I think that's the general feeling that they've had from everybody else. Does that answer your question, Supervisor?
Yes, it does. Yeah, and so instead of staying out of the minutia, I got it, and that's kind of what I would have expected. So, but I just wanted to make sure after, listening to Gary, I just wanted to make sure we had a direction on what we as Board of Supervisors were going to do. I do know there's a lot of activity going on here in the Flagstaff community about showing up on Thursday. So I'm sure some of the minutia will be handled by members of the community.
Good.
Steve, if I may.
Mr. Chair, your call.
Yes, but also I want to get it back to, go ahead, Gary, but let's get it back to, I need to check in with the board after Gary and then get it back to Steve. I think some of the answers to some of the questions are in the PowerPoint also, but go ahead, Gary.
Thank you, Chairman Ryan. Going back to Supervisor Horstman's comment, I will say that in Pinal County, the vast majority, and I'd say probably 90 to 95% of the comments were regarding legislative districts. I only recall in that long meeting, one person referencing a congressional district. And they were basically taking the position that Pinal County has grown so much that they are entitled to their own legislative district. But that was it. I mean, the focus tended to be on the legislative districts, and in particular, issues where they perceived to have an unfair advantage that was afforded to non-rural areas.
Mr. Chair, Gary, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Nina.
Did you notice that this was down, the comments on the legislative districts? Was it mostly party line or was it just in general?
Supervisor Fowler, what I saw was a much more general. It wasn't partisan really at all, but there was a strong indication of distinguishing rural from urban areas. And that I think is very applicable to Coconino County. And that was raised by quite a few people. So it did not seem to be political at all.
Yeah. This is, if I respond to this, is it okay, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so in the Phoenix meetings, quite the opposite was true. I mean, I think that the people that came in to speak were organized by party. Mostly the people that have been coming out have been Republicans as opposed to Democrats. And there's obviously a leadership in every one of these groups that comes in and speaks on it. Like in the Central Phoenix, you could tell obviously that Barry Wong, I don't know if any of you guys know Barry Wong, he's an old state legislature, very Republican, comes out of Scottsdale, has been on the senator, has been on the governor's board on census. He organized almost all of Scottsdale. A lot of precinct committee people came in, and most of them, a majority of them identified themselves as Republican. I think that when you start talking about legislative districts, it is being run party by party. One of the things that we noticed, like Tempe is an example. Tempe, right now, one of the legislative district combines with South Phoenix, and they just did not like that. I mean, they didn't like that they were being combined in with South Phoenix, and the people, and they were complaining about the heavy Hispanic influence on their district. So I think, at least from Phoenix, and you're probably going to see this from Pima, I think it is being run bipartisan. There's one guy that came in and said, kind of shocking nowadays, said they should throw all the racial and ethnic components out completely and not take into consideration whether there was how many Native Americans or how many Hispanics were, but just do it by humans. So I think that on legislative districts, I think you are seeing a partisan solution, but it's not unusual. I mean, if you look at 2000 and 2010, most of the people that showed up were elderly, and most of them were very Republican. Sun City had a huge contingency. Youngtown had a huge contingency, wanted to stay together. Glendale was kind of split in half. Half the people in Glendale wanted to go with Sun City. Half the people said they had nothing in common because of the school districts and what's happening in there. But I think in terms of community interest, splitting cities, splitting school districts played a really large part of it, and where they shop and where they work and where they live also played a large part of it right now. But I think I think you're going to find more of the Phoenix speaking, especially when you hit Pima and other areas. And I don't know if it's going to stay Republican oriented or Democratic oriented, but right now I think there's a large political impact in terms of who's speaking and who's not speaking.
All right, Lena. You out there, Lena? Okay.
I'm here. Yes, thank you. Because this does become very partisan, and we need to really focus. From our county, we've always focused on our communities, and I just want to stay focused on our priorities. So thank you.
All right. Other board members, Jose. Jose, I'm sorry. Jose's our consultant. Geronimo.
Thank you for all the information. It's very interesting to hear how the other counties are reacting. The biggest thing that I keep wrestling with is how do we link with the rural communities and avoid being sucked into the urban areas and dilute our vote and our voting power by being connected to those urban areas. It just seems like the urban areas are too big to avoid completely and be in a completely rural district. But I was just curious, as consultants, what are some of the things that you're seeing that we can do as a county to kind of push for remaining in that rural capacity?
If I may, Chairman, if you look at the slide that you have, Steve's got up right now, the broad county priorities, most of the things that you have on the priorities are rural oriented. I think the focus on things like this makes it more likelihood, gives you a better chance of maintaining it rural than some of the stuff that's been coming out in Phoenix and Tucson and Pinal. I think that you got to do with what you're doing, and I think you guys have done an admirable job, both in our meetings that we've had individually and also in what Steve has drawn up. You got to emphasize your role, and you got to emphasize how unique that is. And this is a great start. The priorities that you have right there, I think you got to really kind of go on that. Janet, what do you think? You've had a lot to do about this.
No, I think that this worked very well for Coconino County last time around to have priorities set, and that you're all on the same page. It's reflective of your both urban and rural communities in this very, very large county, the largest county in the state, obviously. And I think that it's important to focus on that this is a vast county, and therefore it warrants that there are these types of priorities and communities of interest. So I agree with Jose that this really paints the picture of you being an urban, or rather a rural county, but also you have institutions of higher learning and you have transportation issues which cut both ways, urban and rural. So I think that this is a good way to focus.
Veronica? Okay. Judy? Do we still have Judy? I know she had.
She may have stepped over to the Zoom for the.
Okay. All right, Steve, let's go back to, can you work us through this and some of the questions or elements of the PowerPoint as well. And then, we can bring it back for, how do we weigh in? Are we comfortable with these? Where do we go?
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Let me go back a couple slides just to make sure. So we went through the community of interest form. I'll come back to the priorities. Let me go through the rest of the slides here and we'll circle back. Again, the proposed framework for the hearing, the board chair presents broad county priorities, and then each board member provides district-specific comments in support of broad priorities. We probably want to come back to this because it was mentioned, I think Supervisor Horstman said, we may want to just look at the broad county priorities and see if board members want to present on a couple of those each, so that there is no likelihood of repetitiveness, but each board member does have the opportunity to speak to specific priorities. So we'll come back to that. And then of course, board members attend listening sessions in other counties. And then the steps going forward, outreach in Coconino County to county constituents, of course, the material that we're presenting on Thursday. And there will be an opportunity throughout the process to continue to provide comment and input. And I think that's an important consideration, is that while the bulk of what we want to present today is basically what the county's position is, we will have the opportunity through our consultants, through us individually attending. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I spent days down at commission meetings listening, and it's really important. It's really important to listen to the conversations that are taking place at the commission level, just to be insightful in terms of what's going on, have your radar on. Of course, public hearings that are going to be taking place with the IRC process. And so continuous input is going to be important throughout this process for the next few months. And then I'm going to stop there, but I wanted to go back to Mr. Chair to go a couple things before, and I'm sorry we're jumping around, but we do, of course, when we're looking at what's happening and what our process and what our position is going to be on this topic, we also want to know what other communities are doing as well. So Flagstaff, Sedona, Cottonwood, Clarkdale, and we are aware, and I'm going to put Janet on the spot to speak to some of the information that she's picked up in some of the articles that have appeared in the Verde Valley related to Cottonwood and to Clarkdale, and also to Sedona, because I know that she had a conversation there as well. So if I could ask Mr. Chair with your permission.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Janet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Verde Valley has been sort of organizing themselves. as Steve has said, Clarkdale has developed a statement that will be read on Tuesday evening at the Sedona meeting. Sedona, the city of Sedona, has also established a list of priorities that they will be reading into the record and presenting on Tuesday evening. The city of Cottonwood made a decision at their city council meeting last week that they were not going to have a position from the city because their council members were divided as to whether they were simply divided. They expressed some issues about the congressional district, and of course I wasn't there, so I didn't hear the entire conversation, but what was reported was that they decided that they would not have a statement of unanimity with the rest of the Verde Valley communities. My understanding is that Camp Verde is going to have a work session to develop a statement. To my knowledge, I don't know if that's happened yet or not. So this is a little bit different than 10 years ago because there wasn't a unified statement from the Verde Valley communities. But what we know from that time and what we know since then is that there's quite a bit of synchronicity between that side of Yavapai County and Coconino County in relationship to workforce, in relationship to watershed issues. There's a lot of people who live in the Verde Valley who work in Coconino County, who commute every day. As we've just seen through the Raphael fire and other issues recently, natural resource issues, there's a lot of shared issues between that part of Yavapai County and Coconino County. So from that standpoint, there clearly is a community of interest. Is there anything else you would want me to add, Steve, to that?
I think that was it. Flagstaff, I know we do have a copy of a letter, but I honestly don't know if it was their final publicly issued letter, or was it in draft? And so I'm a little reticent to speak to that. But I know just in general, they would be advocating for keeping the city in one legislative district and not splitting it, and also taking into deep consideration our indigenous communities in that discussion as well. I guess those are the two main points from the letter.
Chairman, if I could add something, kind of follow up on Janet's comments. One of the things that the commission has been asking, and they also asking in their survey, is they not only want to hear about our community interest, but what commonality we would have with other communities of interest or other places. And this is kind of nice. It's kind of important when you look at the broad congressional districts that we're going to look at. Who do we have things in common with? Who we'd like to join with, essentially. You don't want to say we want to join them, but when you speak, I mean, we have the Native American population in Coconino. That's an easy reach that somebody should speak to, about the fact that it'd be nice to keep as many of them as possible together if you guys think that's important. But look around you, to Yavapai, to Janet, we just talked about on Verde Valley. These are your guys' decisions to make, but I think that you should start making the commission aware of who you think share some of your common interests.
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
I want to circle back to the priorities, and this would be the appropriate time to begin the discussion related to the 2011 priorities, also the 2021 priorities to identify from the board. Begin to look at those priorities from 2011 that we want to look at as 2021, but also we did include from some of the discussions and some of the individual discussions we've had, some of the examples. So one was tenets of the Voting Rights Act, of course, which was recently reduced in scope. Coconino County values what the Voting Rights Act was meant and was designed to address, and so that is for consideration. Watershed, another, of course. So watershed is common to many communities in northern Arizona. The issue of workforce, especially in communities where individuals work in one community but live in another. And so workforce is a driving factor that unifies communities in more ways than one. The role and the presence of national parks, monuments, and recreational areas. Of course, Coconino County has several of those when you include monuments in the recreational areas that can and may create a community of interest in and of itself. And then most recently, that of course we're realizing, and this actually took place when we look at communities impacted by declared emergencies. The board back in 2010 did have a statement related to this as it pertained to the Schultz fire flood. And of course, now we're dealing not only with the museum, but of course, over the weekend, dealing with natural disasters and emergencies that are taking place in Hopi and Navajo as well.
All right. So at this point, actually, I think it's, Steve, I think you're pausing at this point.
Yes.
So that we can get feedback from the board on this.
Mm-hmm.
So taking a look at the priorities, I'll turn to the board. Is there a comfort associated with, we have both sets and they can be combined, or we can remove some or add some related to this. I'm feeling comfort myself on what we have, but we definitely, this is we need feedback from everybody. How are we doing in terms of what staff put together as they did their listening of individual board members and put this together? I'll probably just walk through board members. I understand Supervisor Begay isn't here. We can reach back out to Supervisor Begay. I'll start with Vice Chair, and then I'll work through, just I guess numerically after that. Lena. I know it takes a minute for you to get to your mute button.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Could you repeat just what you just said that you wanted?
Yeah. So we're looking right now. We're looking at the broad county priorities, and so staff put this together. They put together 2011 and 2021 as they listened to us. They showed us the 2011, and it seems like they put together a few extra. Do you have comfort associated with them, or is there discomfort? Do we need to modify anything here?
No, I think this is good because, I did add to that as well. And I think that what we have right now is very good. We're the ones that really work with the national park and monuments and recreation areas to, when we're out advocating, I thought that would be a very good addition, which I'm really happy that it was. Our workforce, our workforce has been, I think there was it in our community assessment, it was reported that our workforce traveled like 50 miles round trip just to go to work. And I'm really happy that is an emphasis in there. Of course, we've been working on our watershed, and that's an area that we really, when I look at our list, I'm thinking about, okay, what is our community? What are the communities? I guess that's where they say a community of interest, and what is our own agenda? And that's the way I'm looking at this, is what has been our agenda? Where have we been? And where are we right now? That's what I'm looking at when I look at this. We can add, I guess, add some more. We have maybe we should add our towns and cities in this list, because we do have, little Fredonia way up there. We need to make sure that it stays in our district, so that we can work closely and make sure that we're working with them and advocating on their behalf. So the corners of the counties, in my district, I'm along the Arizona Strip, which means I'm on the border of Arizona and Utah. And then on the other side, the border of Mojave and Coconino. So, and we provide service in Mojave County and this city of Colorado City. And so we do share services across, and a lot of our residents in that area, or some of them, do attend the Mojave Community College. So there is a common interest and working relationship in those areas with Utah, Kane County, Kanab, city of Kanab, and then the Kaibab tribe borders is both sides. Of course, I represent the rabbits and the lizards, but they're in our county. So when we're thinking about the community interests, I think that's what we think about. And we all know that the Colorado River is in 196 miles of the Colorado River is in our county, as is 20 miles of the Lake Powell, and we have Glen Canyon Dam that is in our district. So we are in the upper basin and the lower basin when you're thinking about the Colorado River. So, you know, public lands, that's why I think public lands is very important. You know, for Grand Canyon, the Grand Canyon is in, you know, the North Rim and on the rim of the South Rim. It's all in my district. Of course, we have Patrice that represents the communities in that area. But I think that this is a really good list. I'm really happy that we added the voter rights. You know, we all know that that is something that is not required anymore, but I think it's very important to our residents, our citizens. It is just, I think we need to stand on that as a foundation when it comes to Coconino County. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good, thank you, Alina. Turn to Patrice, Supervisor, of course.
Yes, we definitely want to keep the Grand Canyon in one legislative district. I agree very strongly with what Supervisor Fowler has indicated. I would add, and by the way, I think that the priority list is good. I did take a look at the notes from the 2011 hearing. I had a couple of things that kind of jumped out that I think we could maybe add or at least include as part of the priority list. For example, forest, ranching, and agriculture. We need to also talk about Fry. I mean, we've got this Fry initiative that's been ongoing for some time, and obviously that creates a community of interest for us here in Coconino County. So I would like that to be included in there. Watershed, I think, is really important. I think that's a great addition for 2021 consideration. And can we add maybe watershed and shared water policy? Obviously, Colorado River, feature of the Colorado River, and our communities tied to the Colorado River are an important part of our communities of interest here for us up in Coconino County. So just maybe a slash shared water policy would be something that we'd want to include. And then I do agree, a comment that was made by Lena too. We don't want to, Flagstaff should be in a single legislative district. I mean, they split Greater Flagstaff back in the olden days, and thank God they changed that in 2011. And it's not just Flagstaff. Obviously, we don't want to split the municipalities, the towns and cities that we have here in Coconino County. So I think that's something that is important for us as well. And one of the reasons I think we're tied to some parts anyway of Yavapai County is the city of Sedona. And that's of course in Matt's district. But you know, I think it'd be important for us to have I think we have much of communities of interest with the city of Sedona. And then last, I agree, maybe we make something a little bit broader here and call it public lands, large landscape restorations. We have large tracts of both forest and of public lands, including obviously a national park and national monuments. So it may be just more of a catch-all for that. I know you have national parks, monuments, recreational areas, / maybe public lands in general. So I think that's a huge part of Coconino County and our community of interest. So with that, and maybe with a few additions, I think that the priorities are good ones. I think it would be great maybe to break some of this up so that when we are at the IRC and speaking on these priorities, that we can kind of concentrate on one or two of them. So thank you.
All right. Hieronymus.
Yes, thank you. I agree with my colleagues and everything that's said before. I do like the priorities that have been listed. Looking at it, one thing that I do see a community of interest that wasn't listed on here, that was listed in 2011, that really stuck out to me is the rural versus urban. Again, kind of going back to my previous comments. And I agree that we want to maintain one legislative district so we don't lose our voice. And then the other area that I would really like us to focus on is recognizing the different diversity that we have in our county. In my specific district, going back, what we were talking about earlier, there are various neighborhoods in the district that are very diverse that you don't really find in other places in the county to the same level. And so I would like to make sure that those voices don't get lost in this conversation, or as we're creating these different districts or looking what our priorities are, that we give voice to these different diverse communities in our county, and I'll make sure that they don't get washed under through some of the efforts that happen. And so that was the big thing that stuck out with me. Again, I like the idea of the public lands and including Fort Fry in that conversation. Another area, I know we're talking about workforce, small business, entrepreneurship, some of those communities of interest as well. So again, I'm in support of these priorities for the county. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to comment on something that Vice Chairwoman Fowler stated about the Voting Rights Act and the county being supportive of the values of the Voting Rights Act. And that lines right up with statements that Commissioner Derek Watchman has made at more than one commission meeting over the last several months. What a high priority that is for him. And he wanted to be sure that the commissioners understood that. They didn't necessarily comment on his comment, but he made it very clear that that's a high priority for him. So I just wanted to be sure that the board knew that, and it lines right up with Vice Chairwoman Fowler's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. I'm really happy that he's making those statements. So thank you.
So, okay. I'll give my 2 cents on this one. I like the list that staff has compiled on this, gathering it from us, that we offer comments on. It's a broad list, but it also is encompassing areas of our interest. Steve, I'm turning to you. A couple add-ons, like the idea that Lena is proposing our cities. Thought that I had associated with that is maybe the suggestion of keeping our cities whole along with our shared interests, a statement, something like that. But I don't know, sometimes when I try and do that, it might not capture as well. Thoughts on these additional pieces. Patrice suggesting Fort Fry, it probably could be, as Patrice, maybe we have the forestry, ranching, forestry, including shared interest in the forefront. You know, we'd have to spell out the acronym so they'd understand what we're talking about, and as well as ranching and ag. You know, just a thought on that, a way of capturing that one.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm taking notes from all of your comments.
Oh, okay.
Notes that will be, because what we'll end up doing after this is taking your notes and comments, and I'll be working with the consultant team to draft some talking points. But I do want to, before we do, go back to the suggestion of maybe we divvy up the priorities and we have board members speak to specific ones as their highlight. But that
Sure. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and Patrice, you were suggesting that, and I think we can share in that way. The real trick would be, how do we do that with each of the meetings? So, you know, a thought I had with that is, and we can do that for the Flagstaff one, since it seems like most of us will be present, if not all of us, on that one. But we're also going to be going to other areas. So if we had this litany, the list of the general priorities, and then getting into the opportunity of whoever's speaking more specifically to a particular district, highlighting even more so these priorities and the application associated with that particular district. It's added resonance and you know, reflective, hopefully, of the community comments that come forward with it. So, you know, we can divvy it out and work it out for Flagstaff. It'd be a little tricky if we tried to hop around with everybody. That would be cumbersome, as well as for our clerk, in terms of a board being brought together for each one of these meetings on this. So just, do you want to add to your thought process on that?
Well, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve.
No, it was basically going to restate what I think you heard. What I think you said is we would have, following the suggestion, identifying priorities for each of the board members to present at the Flagstaff hearing. However, for those hearings where you're going to be attending on behalf of the county and other counties, we would have more of a consolidated script, if you will, that it would be presented so that we're not having to pull the board members to present, basically we don't want to take the board on the road per se. We want to give them kind of a general presentation or comment to make. And I know that we're doing that in some cases, so we'll work on that. But I think that's what I heard you say. You know, divvy it up for flag, but then do a consolidated one for the outline presentations.
So we get the consistency of what we're saying in a general sense, but by the same token, each board member is going to have a specific area that they're highlighting as it's more specific to their particular area.
Okay.
On that.
Yeah.
Patrice?
Yeah, oh, I agree 100%. Yeah, I wasn't thinking that we were going to be taking Coconino County Board of Supervisors on the road for all the others as well. I think it's important for us to show up there. And if you would like to have a statement made by Coconino County, I think it should be kind of a more of a uniform, universal, if you will, statement. So I actually didn't know you wanted us to make statements at the other hearing, other talking sessions, but that sounds good to me. If you do, just to kind of have a general statement on behalf of Coconino County, that would be great.
Yeah, it'd be good if we had rotating supervisors in areas more specific. Like, you know, it makes sense for me to be down in Yavapai County.
Absolutely.
It makes sense for maybe Lena heading out to Window Rock, you know, that kind of idea. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, please, Jose.
One of the thoughts that I thought is that you're going to have some of the supervisors at these other places, is not to talk generally about broad county priorities, but to identify the commonality between what they're saying at those meetings and with Coconino County. Like if you're at Window Rock and somebody Window Rock starts talking about, you know, Voting Rights Act and the Native and keeping Native Americans together, it'd be nice to say we share in that rather than say this is what Coconino County's priorities is. Kind of show the commonality, to show common communities of interest. That's another way of approaching it, I think, when you go to some of these other counties.
Okay. And Geronimo, I can't, I'm not seeing everybody with my screen share right now. I'm messing up on that. So I didn't see your hand up. Geronimo, go ahead.
Not a problem. As I was looking at the 2011 priorities, I was considering our 2021 priorities. Are we saying that some of these things on the 2011 priorities are no longer priorities, such
No.
as tribal nations, institutions of higher learning? Or are we saying that the new tenants that we're adding are adding to those 2011 priorities? It just wasn't clear to me. So, and I should probably ask that sooner, but as I was listening to the different supervisors discuss the priorities, it kind of occurred to me, like, are we merging the two lists, or are we going exclusive for the list that we're saying for consideration for 2021, and those other priorities are no longer priorities for the county?
Yeah, and so Steve had an opportunity to bring the old list, and we have it before us. With that, it created a nice template. If there was any reticence of that, we can kick a piece or two out. But my understanding is, unless people have hesitation, that we would merge the two lists here on that. I see Patrice nodding her head also on that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with merging the two lists. I just want it to be clarified.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, great question on that. Okay, what else do you need, Steve? And I hear you, Jose. I think it makes absolute sense for the sake of the board members that would be testifying there. You know, it creates that aligned dynamic with that particular community of interest that we're speaking before also.
At this point in time, Mr. Chairman, we would probably want to look at this list of the priorities and identify board members and make some assignments in terms of which ones we would want each board member to speak to.
You bet. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
this is Lena. I'm willing to attend the Flagstaff and the Window Rock. I don't know if since I heard assignments, I'm just volunteering that I can do those two, unless I really don't need to be in Flagstaff. It's all up to you all. Thank you.
I think it makes sense for you to be here, Lena.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In Flagstaff, same here in that respect.
Okay.
I would hope, Mr. Chair, that we're all that the whole board will be in Flagstaff. So, and hopefully then we'll have to set this as an agenda, so that because we'll have a quorum there. But
yeah, I would say, that makes sense that we would be there, that we get posted for it. Then we can have Steve divvy it up between now and I believe is it Thursday?
Yes, Thursday.
Yeah, on that, there might be a way of that. Maybe I'm framing it, so that I can do a handoff or something like that. So he'll have to work a little bit more with us, just in terms of lining up the roles associated with this. Just other areas, Steve. We have a couple other hearing areas.
Right. Let me go back to the slideshow. I got bumped out of it, so let me go back to it if I could, just so we can just. Sorry about that. As we're talking.
And everybody okay with me, Yavapai County?
that makes a lot of sense, Chair Ryan. So, and just, you tell me where you want me, and I assume these can be in person and on Zoom, is that right?
I believe they're both. I'll have to check on that.
Okay, that would be good to know.
Yeah.
So then, Mr. Chairman, you're going to go to Yavapai. We're going to have as many of the board members at the Flagstaff session, and then on to the next one. Apache County, Window Rock, Supervisor Fowler is going to be attending that. Saturday, the 31st, Navajo County, we've got the main one is being provided out of Sholo, and satellites in Kayenta, Kokosmovi as well. We might want to check with, it's open, for other board members, so we can, that's out for consideration. We've got some time to look at that, at least for next week, and so we can reach out to board members on that, unless
Steve, if, you know, that might be good for, of course, Judy to go to if she can. If Judy can't attend, I will be happy to attend in her place if she can.
Okay. That'll be
Okay. That'd be a nice shared role, to be honest with you. On that.
Then that covers that. And then, so we've got assignments for locations and coverage. And then we'll go next to the priorities. Identifying from this list of priorities, priorities that individual board members want to speak to. So what we'll be doing, and just to let Janet and Gary and Jose know, from our discussion today, I'll team up with you later on today to begin to look at these areas based on the assignments that we've gotten from board members. So we'll be putting together general statements, introduction, preamble, et cetera, and then going into individual priorities that the board members want to speak to, and we'll work with you to elaborate those a little bit more. Of course, 3 minutes goes quickly, so it'll be pretty quick. The chair as the chair will be making the presentation just generally, probably speaking more to the preamble, and then of course going back into the individual board presentations, doing a deeper dive into some of those priorities. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. I don't have to become district specific in that role. Just putting them together, that'd be good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So at this point, Mr. Chair, it's a for board members who want to sign up for particular areas. This is the opportunity to hear that from your side, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And Geronimo, you're definitely going to be here in Flagstaff.
I will not be physically in Flagstaff, but I will tune in via Zoom.
Okay.
And I will be able to make a statement.
Oh, good. Good. More importantly, that's great. On that, did you want us to assign you to all 5 other ones too, Geronimo?
No, please don't.
Yeah.
Although I would, if necessary, if there would be one that would be applicable that the board would like me to attend as well, I would be willing to do so.
That's the important thing. That, I'm glad you're making that comment, Geronimo, because as Janet and Jose and Gary had noted, and Steve, some of this, it's going to happen quickly, but sometimes we need to be present, and there may be opportune moments that it depends on the audience, who is the appropriate person to come forward and speak. So I think that would be a key piece that we keep in the back of our mind also on that. All right. Any other wrap-ups on this?
Are you going to have Steve? Are you going to just kind of assign? I know that a lot of these areas of county priorities overlap, and I think that's fine actually. But do you want to just assign, or you want us to tell you what we're interested in? I'm willing either way, because quite frankly, this is a county. I think we're all concerned. These are all areas of interest. Many times, a lot of these areas of interest, go between districts, if you know what I mean. Forest is large. There's a lot of districts. Grand Canyon's large. There's a couple districts. So, if you want to just say, hey, would you mind taking these 3? Would you mind taking these 3? Whatever you think is appropriate, I'm willing to do. Just let me know what you're looking at, Steve.
And I just want to throw out, I agree with that. I think in some ways for us supervisors, it would be easier if we were assigned which areas to address, and then we could make the district specific comments based off of those areas that we're assigned to.
Okay. Mr. Chair, that's fine. We can get together, the consultant team and I can get together and divvy that up. Go back to you later this afternoon to show you what we've come up with, get some feedback, and then refine it and then put it together.
Yeah, and I would suggest, like, as we go, this time we're trying to be assigned quickly in what we're doing, and we'll get better and better at it. This is why we have our consultants also as well. We want to bring our priorities. There's no question about it. Right. But by the same token, there are going to be different dynamics that are in flow in the conversation that they'll be aware of. That they might be able to advise us. You might want to consider, if it's a forestry issue, if it's the trees, me, any of us for that matter, speaking to it, here's how, how it resonates with this particular time or topic with the group. So,
Yeah. Okay, we'll work on that after this call and get back to you later on today.
Okay. Anything else? Let's see, board members, any other comments or thoughts?
No, just that we'll need to know as quickly as we can whether we need to be in these places in person or if we can do it by Zoom, since
We'll find
if
out.
Judy can't do this, and I'll be happy to go with Judy anyway, even if she can do this, just let me know, Steve.
Okay.
And if she can't, Patrice, you need a backup, I can hop in with it, and or we're hearing that from Geronimo as well, and Lena, I'm sure.
Right, because our consultant team will also be attending some of the
Good.
hearings as well. So
Thanks.
Yeah, I have, at the meetings that I've attended so far, there have not been Zoom meetings. There's been testimony from the satellite offices, but there's nobody that's testified by Zoom itself.
Okay, so that's good to know. So,
Then that's fine. We just need to know so we can plan our 3 hours to get there.
Right.
And if we can get an address of where we're supposed to show up by.
Right.
So, and yeah, Matt, if you're coming with, you and I can just drive out there together.
Yeah. Let's check with Judy and all that first, but otherwise, if you want, so.
All right, good, thanks.
Okay.
I had a question, and I know you just mentioned that for these meetings, they haven't been allowing Zoom or whatnot. Are these meetings at least being live streamed to the community so that they can be, some people can watch them who can't actually attend in person?
Yes, all these are being live streamed, and they're all, you can catch them. You can catch, they're being filmed, and they're also being recorded, so you can always catch the whole meeting, even if you're not there at that time. And you can make comments at any point in time. In fact, they encourage comments to come in through their website throughout the whole process. So like if you see something that you think might have been important, or if you missed a point or something, you can always do that survey and turn it in. And I think the more surveys that get in, the better it is, because the surveys are going to go to the mapping people, and the mapping people will then round off all the surveys. So the more written material that we have in addition to the speaking material, the better it is.
Okay.
I hope you have time in Mexico City, because I'm really jealous.
If I can, one more question, given that, are we going to Coconino County I see City of Flagstaff did, I don't know if Williams is going to or Sedona is going to, but will Coconino County send a letter in to the Redistricting Commission like City of Flag is?
We should, based on the talking points we put together, memorialize that in an official communication as the jurisdictions are doing. So we can do that too.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, and actually, I had forgotten about the map. I had an idea, and I might drive these guys nuts with my idea on it. But so if you look at our areas of interest, we're going to have a concentrated value, but sometimes they're going to bubble. And a thought I had was, what if we had a map that showed the interest areas or where they overlap, but showed where they go expand beyond also, that become a lighter shade associated with it. So it's almost like an overlay of a community of amoebas, for a lack of better analogy there. But you start to see a concentration of common interest, and then you can see where the interests expand beyond also on it. But the suggestion would be, if we compiled some sort of map that they saw in that way, it might be helpful for the commission as well. It's kind of hard. We're going to get caught into, we're so big geographically, and it has been advantageous to have 2 legislative districts. Are they going to attempt to keep Coconino County together as a whole? Highly unlikely with the populations that we have. And it served us well to have 2 legislative districts in the long term. But we have to be careful. There's a potential that they could break us up unless we show these overlay of the interest and how they work with that. So Any comments or thoughts from the board on the map piece? I know we need to wrap this up too. I bring it up at the last minute here.
I mean, having a map like that, I mean, anytime you have some kind of visual something, it's a good thing. I mean, if that's even possible to do, it's always great to have visuals.
Yeah, and the other thing, if I may intrude for a while, this is not only helpful for these communities of interest, but when they start drawing maps and you can overlay the community of interest that you had before on the maps that we're going to be able to also draw, would be really helpful.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that brings up a really good point. Sorry to just jump in, but at these presentations, can we take a map at least of Coconino County just to show the geographical area that we represent? Most of these people are from down south and they don't know the northern and they don't really know our county. So I think might be really good just to hand out, this is Coconino County. And our maps that we have. So that might be good.
So this would be a handout to the commission, right?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking, just to tell them who we are.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. Another good suggestion would be is if we could send the map of Coconino County to the commission, to send it directly to the administrator, so they can blow it up on their screen while you guys are speaking.
I agree. I would like to see some maps out there. Me personally, I'm a visual person. It helps put things in context. And I think the ability to have those communities of interest already mapped out beforehand as we're having this conversation will really help hit the point home. And sounds like if we have those already mapped, when the map makers are going to create the maps, they'll use them as reference points. So I think it can only be a positive for us to provide those maps with community interest beforehand.
Yeah.
So let me make a comment here, because I just want to manage expectations here. So a map, but not necessarily a detailed GIS map, because we don't know what the data is. We're basically getting an outline of the county, identifying communities of interest, the forest, that's most of Coconino County, Grand Canyon, Flagstaff, city. I mean, it's more of a visual draw a circle than it is a very detailed GIS map, right? Matt.
Yeah, match maps. There you go. Well, community interest. If you say forest is going to go beyond
Coconino County. Yeah.
So I mean,
I just want to know what we're doing here, because trying to put it together based on your description.
It's not going to be precision, but it's generally capturing community of interest. If it's workforce, you show a flow of workforce. As was noted earlier, Yavapai, we have workforce. Winslow, we have workforce. Navajo Nation, we have workforce.
So it's beyond
components. Yeah. So it goes beyond the county, depending upon the community of that particular area of interest, so to speak, on that. Go ahead, Patrice.
Yeah, and here's our problem with that is these communities of interest would almost encompass all of Coconino County, all of them. Mm-hmm. And even when you talk about the Grand Canyon, that goes to economic development, that goes to ecotourism, and so it's like almost every single one of these we would have all of Coconino County, and so. Which is good. I mean, I think that's why we're saying this is our community of interest, don't split up our county. And so I really like the visual stuff, and I like the idea of having maybe a map of Coconino County listing, the points that we're talking about, whether it be all the municipalities and all the national monuments, where the national forests are, where the Colorado River is, where the national park is, Grand Canyon, so that you can visually kind of see what the county consists of. And boy, I love your idea, Matt, but I'm not sure practically how we can do that, if you know what I mean, because it's the whole county, and it overlaps with Yavapai, it overlaps with Navajo, it overlaps with Apache. Thank God it doesn't overlap with Pinal. No.
Well, we'll take a stab at it.
So,
I can't promise, we'll see.
Work in progress. Yeah.
Yeah, I see Gregory's on, and so we may be engaging his artistic skills to help us.
There you go.
And
All
Julie
right.
and others.
So did we, okay, now that we, I drank that one out, sorry about that. I think we pretty much we got enough information. Got a lot to do pretty quick here, so.
So just to back Mr. Chair to assignments, so we are going to work as the consultant team and myself in putting together the general county statement related to the board, to the priorities. The priorities will be the 2011 and the 2021 consolidated list. We'll also then be later on today giving each of you suggestions on proposed goals to present to. And then also we'll be working on a general statement that can be read by any of you going to other hearings in other parts of the state. And then we'll also be taking your idea of the map and see what we can do visually as it relates to providing a visual reference to the IRC of just how large and the various communities of interest at first blush and generally speaking that the county contains. I think those are the assignments.
Okay, anybody have hesitation from the board there? No? Anything else?
And then, Mr. Chair, you do want to call to the public before you adjourn.
Yes, I do. My gosh. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I noted that earlier, so I wouldn't forget. So we are posted as a public hearing. And so I do need to open this up to the public and see if we have any comment. So Lindsay, can you explain how the public would comment if they have comments?
Sure. If someone would like to provide a public comment, you can go ahead and hit the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen that looks like a hand. And then we can see you and we will promote you to be able to speak. This time, Chair Ryan, I don't see anyone on the call from the public.
No, I'm not doing that, or I don't see that either. And so, but from a formality perspective, very important to do that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close the hearing portion of this session. And then with that, we're done, right?
Yes, and Mr. Chair, if I could ask the consultants to remain on Zoom, I can just close the loop with them. But for the purpose of the meeting, we've gone through the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank everybody for all their work and time on this, and we'll get it down. This is really good. All right, thank you.
Thank you,
thank you
Chairman.
all.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's see.
Thank
Janet.
you. Have a great day.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Let's see. I think,
Hey, Steve, can we take a 2-minute break to go to the restroom?
yeah, let's do that.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Be right back.
All right.
Lindsay, if you want to get off, you can make me a host.